We'll see how this goes. Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody. Scott Stevens here. Let's do this again after kind of a nice, but crazy weekend. It's always nice for the weather guys and gals out there to have something to talk about. One of the biggest nightmares I would have had as an on-air meteorologist would have been to be stuck in maybe one of those climates that's always nice, say Los Angeles, San Diego. Yes, the weather's gorgeous. But for a show at 4, 5, 6, 9:30 and 10 or 11 o'clock, I mean, there's so many shows now, it would have just gotten a little bit exhausting just talking about temperatures and sunny and maybe a little marine layer, so forth and so on. So I always enjoyed the Rockies and eastbound. That's where the weather happened, and that's where we tend to be the happiest. And so we got a nice, good snowstorm back east, a lot of record temperatures with Central Park, New York City, recording on May 9th their latest snowfall on record, well, at least tying the record that was previously set back in 1977. All right, we'll jump into the show here, but just a minute, you can kind of see my little dog, Stella. She's going to be the weather dog for the day. She anxiously awaits whatever goes by the window outside. There is activity, and dogs tend to like activity. So we're going to go with that. And even in the days long ago, I had my other dog, Isaac, would come to work with me, and he passed away like 15 years old and probably spent 7 years in the studio. He'd pop up for the lap for a picture, and of course he has to go for a face lick. That's just kind of the way it was. So let's start with a look at what was happening back east with just outside of Albany, New York, Manan, Schenectady, Niskayuna, all those locations really getting a taste of winter. Literally, this is mid-May, and they're getting 4, 5, 6, 7 inches worth of snow, and that's not insignificant as you're dealing with. You've got to get all the winter trucks out there, the sand trucks, the plows, and so forth. But at least the soil temperatures are warm enough that once the onslaught from the sky ends, that the snow can begin to melt from below. But nevertheless, if the sun tends to set, Then you're going to be left with icy conditions through the night. Farther off south, down into Londonderry, Vermont, actually that would be eastbound, just 1.75 inches at that point. A little farther away, again, also in the Albany district, the capital district, picking up a little bit of snow. And I worked back there maybe some 25 years ago. And those were the longest winters. They really were. And they had kind of an iffy winter as it was. They didn't get a lot of moisture out of it, or at least a lot of winter excitement. And then to have this bookend and punctuate to such a great deal how much snow there was kind of that's what everybody's asking is, what the heck is going on? So as we come back to this, and we'll take the graphics full screen so you can enjoy the data and the numbers just as well as I can, or better. You can still see the 30s highlighted in the light blues. Those higher elevations from Montana, where there's still some snow outside of Billings, and then over towards Sheridan, Wyoming, still have some light snow going on, all the way down into the Front Range of Colorado, where we've had some snow in the higher elevations today. Here where I am in the San Luis Valley, a couple of strikes of thunder to let us know that finally some spring is on the way. And now as I peek out the window, yeah, there's a nice little chemtrail out there. What would be weather without a little of those guys being thrown in, just to keep the tabs on things. Still some cool weather back east. Now that the storm is winding up and leaving off the coast of Maine, the cold westerly winds are now pushing through the area, and still some snows at the higher elevations in Vermont, and will probably progress on up the St. Lawrence River Valley through the nighttime hours. Some good thunderstorms down into Kansas, skimming northern Oklahoma, and now beginning to erupt across West Texas. So if I was a storm chaser today, this is where I would want to spend sunset. I'd want to be back here finding a cell, probably outside of the Lubbock area, and let's just follow one of these. Let's get him behind it and then chase it and see what happens. Another nice big cell up just east of the Cheyenne area as it wanders down south across the Pawnee grasslands. And then we're going to pop out to the west. Let's see if I can't do that in one click rather than 2 clicks. And then we'll see some light rains moving into California, Oregon, Washington, and the remainder of the northern Rockies. All of these locations are dry, and we'll highlight that in a minute. So here's the sunset terminator, where we go to the infrared imagery in the black and white to the visible true color imagery. And it is truly nice to see these rains in these higher, drier plains from New Mexico, West Texas. These places are so dry that these rains are exceedingly welcome. And we're truly beginning to make a pattern change. Once we can get this cold off the eastern seaboard, let's get it shoved out to sea on into the North Atlantic, then we can replace it with more moderate air from the west, from the Pacific. So that's pushing into California. They're getting a break from the heat that they have had last week, with some marine air into the Southern California area, but then also some rain and some snows as you head up to Shasta, Mount Shasta, the Siskiyous, and then into the Cascades of the coastal ranges, and then the punctuated thunderstorms that, now that we're approaching sunset, we'll probably begin to see those wind down in the high plains. So as we look at the national forecast today, the front already ashore in California, probably some blowing or some fire weather issues in and around Las Vegas, St. George, Utah, the Clark County area, and then the risk of severe weather in West Texas. We already saw that on the radar, and then that progresses eastbound into the heart of the central and southern States tomorrow, while mixed precipitation still widespread across Montana, the Dakotas, northern and western Nebraska, and then again into the Adirondacks and northern New York State, and then into New Brunswick and points to the north and east as these storms progress. So we're kind of trending into a wetter pattern, and this really has to be welcome, especially points westbound, where it has been a dry winter. We haven't had a lot. The places that have seen a lot of moisture have been from northeast Texas and on through the deep south, Dixie, where they had a dry late summer and fall, and much of the winter was dry, and now they're beginning to erase those episodes of drought as we tend to look out to the predictive forecast. This just goes out about a day and a half. We'll pop out to some of the recent news, the warm-up in store this week for the Midwest, South, and East Coast. It'll last a while. This is a pattern change. This cold that we've been watching out east has been in place for a little bit of a while now, and we're going to see this next pattern last, where we see the west turn cool and showery and unsettled and slightly cooler, and then the east really begins to heat up as they go from 10, 15 degrees colder than normal to maybe 10, 15 degrees above normal. And if you're a farmer or agricultural business, you'd be grateful that all of that moisture came, and so you got some of that water kind of backed up. Go back a couple of 5 years and Mother's Day weekend. If you thought this past Mother's Day weekend was weird, 5 years ago we had a tropical storm and a winter storm to hit the West. Now, I participated in this snow event out west where we had 15 plus inches here at my address in southern Colorado. So we were privy to that particular storm. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, it turned out to be uh, ended up leading for us a crazy mosquito season because one thing always leads to another. That's just how it all is. All right, a quick pop up of the jet stream, and we could see that storm trying to come into the west. The greens and the yellows, if you're familiar with weather, and this is probably just a tad bit more scientific than you get on the TV news, there's a term called vorticity. And it's the spinning action. You could either deal with the curvature that something has to spin through, or the speed shear, where if you were to rub your hands together, you'll pull dirt off your skin. You'll pull those little bits of dirt up, and that's exactly what happens with the jet stream. You could get speed vorticity, or you can get curvature vorticity. Both of them work. Both of them will result in clouds. Both of them will result in upward movement, which will then bring about some kind of a cooling in the atmosphere. And if there's enough water, you'll get a cloud. And if there's really enough water, rain or snow, depending on the temperature profile. So that's what we're looking at with the green being a very little vorticity. And then right here in the middle of the spin is a whole bunch of the stuff. And just out ahead of it, as they'll teach you in the beginnings of meteorology classes, this is where you go. You would literally quarter this little storm, cut it in quarters, then you want to be in this upper right part. That's where you're going to see the most dynamics or the most energy imparted into the atmosphere, which would result in precipitation. So we kind of look at all of these squiggles on the map and sit down, and you'd look at northeastern or the eastern part of South Dakota, right and through here. Ahead of it is where you would see the most potential for precipitation. And this is out about 5 days' time. So we'll look at the pattern here. Still have a cool northwesterly flow rolling through the eastern portion and the northeastern U.S. But as we get out a couple of days, we move out 10 days. We've got 7 days. We've got a nice trough digging into the western states. So anticipating some showers for California, Nevada, and unsettled conditions into the mountains. And we'll pop over so we can keep this under about 10 minutes. And we'll run this all the way out to the end. So about a week and a half, where do we anticipate the most precipitation? Western Oklahoma. The panhandle of Texas could get 4, 5, 6 inches of rain. So we could see some places in western Missouri, southeastern Kansas, south central Kansas, northern Texas, places that are dry, that will be primed in the coming 10 to 15 days to get some good water. Is it too late for grazing stock? Maybe. But nevertheless, it will take the demand and the continuation of the development of the drought. It would halt that progress. And that's really the good news with this. Also in Northern California, where we tend to see the jet stream and those westerlies lifting into southern Canada, we still have some impedance. We still have some push into those mountainous regions. So we can still get a little bit of rainfall. Pop over to the drought, and this is the last one of the day, and the worst drought on the Oregon-California border through the southwestern U.S., southern Colorado, western Kansas, and the portions of Oklahoma, and of course, deep south Texas. So if we flip back here, and this is kind of where we're getting the moisture. The ones really left out would be the lower Rio Grande Valley and headed into northern Mexico. So that's kind of the way things are rounding up for a Monday. Kind of good to get the cold and the snow behind us for those folks back east and out west. No, we haven't forgotten you. We'll get you a little rain and a little snow over the coming weeks, so a little bit unsettled. And my allergies are still with me. I don't know how to get rid of them. They just tried a little bit of everything, and I'm still kind of struggling with them. All right, guys, that's probably it for the day. Where's my cursor? Way over there. Let's bring this full screen, and let's come up the cursor to there. And we'll see you tomorrow. I hope the little headline lets you know there's a countdown coming, because we kind of thought that maybe it would be a little better that rather than just doing a cold live, that give you a little bit of a countdown, people to come in and so forth. All right, thoughts and feedback. We love it. Love to see it. We're going to be changing the name of this channel. We're going to go from my channel over to one called Metadime. It's kind of a group of folks that I'm working with, and it will be product outside of just me as well. And we'll begin to do some of that introduction this week to get you familiar with what's going on behind the scenes. All right, everybody, take care and keep looking up.